Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education and PLAR Math. So this is week 1 of term 1B, and this is our first class this week because Tuesday was we were off because it was Remembrance Day. So we were off to observe Remembrance Day on Tuesday. So this is our first class this week. So term 1B goes from November 10th, starting on this past Monday, till January 23rd. So we will have Christmas break in there in this term. So we'll get most of the work covered before Christmas break, but then we'll finish it up after the break. So our regular classes are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 12 Central Standard Time. So Jovi and I are teaching the PLAR this term from 11 to 12. The PLAR Science is on Mondays and Wednesdays, and the PLAR Math on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So just remember which day your class is. 2 ways to participate in classes. So you can call in on radio, or you can join using Zoom. And the instructions for joining the classes are in your study guide. All PLAR English students are welcome to attend classes, so if you signed up for Radio Zoom or IL, you can still attend the classes because the material that we cover is the same. There are several ways to contact me. You can use email, phone, or send a message on Facebook, and all of the contact information as well as the information for joining classes is on the front page of the study guide as well as the front page of every lesson. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding ways to contact me. Students who were working on the PLAR from term 1A, so last term if you were working on the PLAR English or the PLAR History Geography, you can keep working on the key questions or the culminating activity, whichever one you are doing, and continue to submit it to your teacher. The recorded classes from last term and last year are still available on the WASA YouTube channel. So to find the WASA YouTube channel, go to YouTube and then search WASA Distance Education Center. You will find our logo and our name, WASA Distance Education Center. You might have to look for it because it is kind of small with everything else that's there. Once you find that, click on the link, and then you will get to our WASA Distance Education Center channel. Once you get there, you will notice that there is a random selection of classes. Okay, not playlists for classes, but there'll be a huge selection of separate classes. So what you need to do is go to playlists. They're in the list, so click on playlists. Once you do that, then you will go to our playlist for all of the courses that we have been offering since September. So once you get there, and actually playlists for classes from last year as well. Once you get to the playlist, find the subject that you're looking for. So PLAR Math is here somewhere. Or maybe it's not. Yeah, it is down here, sorry. So PLAR Math all the way down here. And what you will see is the 2024-2025 playlist because, of course, this is our first term offering the PLAR Math for this school year. So the classes that are in our on our YouTube channel right now are the classes from last year for the PLAR Math. The PLAR English that I taught last year is for this school year, so what was taught last term. Same thing with the PLAR History and the PLAR, PLAR Science. You will also see that there is PLAR Science, PLAR English, PLAR History for 24-25. So look for the most recent school year, but again, because this is the first term for teaching the PLAR Math, you will have to watch the 24-25 classes. So once you get there, click on View Full Playlist underneath the title, and then you will see all of the PLAR Math classes from last year when they were taught. And the classes are organized by lesson and key question. So whichever lesson you're working on, you can look for that, and then whichever key question, and that's the class that you will watch. Okay, so that's our YouTube channel. We're just going to have a quick look at the study guide. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because you guys can read through the study guide when you have time. So the study guide is for the 25-26 school year, so make sure you have the correct version this year's. And again, there is all of my contact information right there on the front cover. So the Zoom link, the meeting ID, and the passcode are all there if you want to join a Zoom class. The studio number to phone in is there. The radio channel, online radio link, television, online radio, the office number, the fax number, my email, my Facebook, and my YouTube are all there as well. So all of that contact information. Inside, you will find just a welcome to PLAR Math, description of what PLAR Math is. For those of you who are new to PLAR, PLAR means Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition. It's not courses. It is a program that will get you through your grade 9 and 10 quicker than if you were doing all of the grade 9 and 10 actual courses. So for the PLAR Math, there are 5 lessons that we will be covering, and the 5 lessons cover the majority of math expectations for grade 9 and 10. So if you were going to a regular day school, what you will get at that day school is basically what we are covering in the PLAR Math. So for anybody who already went to grade 9 and 10 and for whatever reason you weren't successful, this will be a review for you. For anyone who didn't get to grade 9 and 10 for whatever reason, this will be new to you. Maybe not everything, depending on what you've been working in, what field you've been working in, what you've been doing since high school. Some of this might be a review for you as well. So of course, for anyone who is new to grade 9 and 10, then it's very important that you do the lessons. For anyone where this is a review for you, you might be able to jump to the culminating activity. Again, like I said, I'm not going to read through all this. I'm going to focus on some things. The evaluation for the PLAR Math, in each lesson, as you're going through the lessons, you will notice that there are support questions and key questions. The support questions are scattered throughout the lesson, and they're designed to help you practice the skills that you've been reading about, and before you do the key questions. So there are answers to the support questions near the end of the lesson, right before the key questions. So do the support questions, then check your answers. Do not submit the support questions. Okay, I do not need the support questions because, like I said, the answers are there. You can check your own answers. So once you've done that, if you are doing really well with the support questions, then you move on to the key questions. The key questions are the assignments. They are the questions that you complete and send out to me for marking. Okay? You must answer the key questions for each lesson and then submit them either directly to me or to the DEC, who will send them to me. Write your answers to the key questions in the space provided. If you need more space, you shouldn't for the math, but if you do need more space, you can use lined paper. Make sure you attach it. Make sure you show me your work. So whatever you need to do to get your answer, make sure you write it all down and make sure it's there when you submit your work. Okay, the lessons that you're doing help prepare you for the equivalency subject-based assessment test. We have started for several years now having students do a culminating activity, which is a take-home test. So you don't have to be supervised when you're doing it. You can take it home and work on it. You can work on it at your learning center, at your workplace, wherever. It doesn't matter. And just to mention, I will mention this several times, but students who, as I mentioned earlier, if you're new to the PLAR Math, you haven't done grade 9 or 10 math before, it's a good idea to do the lessons, especially if you have no experience with working with algebra. For students who have done some grade 9 and 10 or are working with math in their work, then you can try the culminating activity instead of doing the lessons. If you pass the culminating activity, you get your credits for your grade 9 and 10 math. Okay, it's very important that I have a contact number and or email where I can reach you or leave a message. If you are able, please give me a call as soon as you get the materials. For submitting your work, there are different ways of doing that. The first way is to give it to your DEC, and your DEC will send it out to us here in Sioux Lookout. If you do not have a learning center in your community and you don't have a DEC, you can submit your own work. And just remember that if you are submitting your own work, be sure to put your name on your work so that we know who it's from, and please use the name that you registered with when you send your work. Otherwise, we still are not going to know who it's from. Okay, so then to submit your work, you can, if you have access to a scanner, you can scan and email your own work to our student work email address, and make sure you CC it to me. Or if you have access to a fax machine, you can fax it to our toll-free number. If that doesn't work for you, you can use your smartphone to take photos of your work, or use the built-in scanner on your smartphone and scan your work, and then you can either email it to that same student work email and CC to me, or you can send your work using Facebook Messenger. If you are in Sioux Lookout, if you live in Sioux Lookout or you live in the surrounding area and you come to Sioux Lookout fairly often, you can use our outdoor mailbox, which is located at the side of the building in the Wasta parking lot. Or you can knock on our front door off Main Street, or use the doorbell and then hand it to whoever answers the door. You can also use Google Docs to complete your work, and then you can send me the link. Make sure the link is shareable. Okay, so for delivery of the PLAR Math, 2 live 1-hour radio Zoom classes each week. We already talked about that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The PLAR Math will be offered again in Term 2B, April to June 2025, at the same time as far as we know now. You are encouraged to call in and participate in the broadcasts. If you cannot be in the Learning Center, you should try to listen at home or at work if possible. Also encouraged to call me for help if you are stuck on something, and you can also view the recorded classes on YouTube, as I mentioned earlier. At the bottom of the page there is a tentative class schedule, so just to give you an idea, so if you're working on your own, just to give you an idea of where you should be during each week of the term. Now, of course, some students will work faster than 9 weeks, some might take a bit longer. Depending on your other responsibilities, it might take you longer to get through it. If you're staying at home, if you don't have young kids, then you might get through it a lot quicker. So this is just a tentative schedule, just a guide. So some things that you can do to stay organized: read through the study guide to make sure that you understand what the course is about. Contact your teacher as soon as you start your course to introduce yourself and to say that you have received your course materials. Plan to either attend class or view class recordings regularly. Set your own goals for when you could finish each key lesson. So have an idea in your head when you can get this done. And of course, if you get stuck on something, please contact me right away. Okay, then we have a schedule of what's in each lesson and the key questions. So there are 28 key questions total. The first lesson has the most key questions because that is the basics of math. So we will be spending a fair amount of time on that. On the next page is my contact information again, so you can have a look at that. Then next is the Gmail accounts that NNEC offers to students. So if you don't have your own email account, or you can't remember your email so you can't get into it or whatever, you can get an NNEC schools.org email. So there's information there about that, and you can contact me to get it set up. Some information here on on-air protocol, so what to do when you are attending classes, and some information on plagiarism, which really doesn't apply for the math because we're not doing much in the way of writing. Then there's some more information on attending or listening to live classes, and then about the recordings. So again, just read through that. There's information there for you. Then a bit more information about attending or watching classes. You can also, if you don't have internet access or reliable internet access, you can request a USB recording of the classes. So I can make that USB for you with all the classes and send it up to you either through your DEC or by mail. And again, the classes are organized according to lesson and key questions, so you can view the classes that way. Then on the next several pages is information about how to join a Zoom class. So if you plan on joining a Zoom class, you can look through those pages. And then on the last page of your study guide is the learning skills rubric. When you get a mark sheet back, at the bottom it's learning skills, and this just outlines the different categories and what they mean. Okay. So that's it for the study guide. Like I said, make sure you read through it so that you understand what the PLAR math is all about and about submitting your work or contacting me. Just a couple of other announcements before we begin on Lesson 1. At the end of each term, WASA has 2 student draws, one for students who earn a credit during the term and one for students who submit work during the term. So for every lesson or every piece of work that you submit, your name will be entered into a draw at the end of the term. So we keep a record of the work that you submit, how much you submit, when you submit it, etc. And then at the end of term or during the term, if you write the culminating activity and you pass it, your name will be entered into the credit draw as well. So for example, for PLAR, it is possible for a student to complete all 5 PLAR in one term, and then your name will go into that credit draw 5 times. So the more you work, the more work you submit, the better your chances of winning a prize. And our prize is $100. Okay, just a reminder, I mentioned it earlier, that all PLAR students do have the option of either completing the lessons or doing the culminating activity. So if you decide that, if you look through the math and you decide that, okay, this is all stuff that I know, this is pretty easy to me, so I'm going to request the culminating activity. So then I will send you the culminating activity, and if you pass the culminating activity, you get your missing grade 9 and 10 credits. And you move on to the next subject. You don't have to worry about the key questions anymore. If, however, you're not successful with the culminating activity, then you will have to do the lessons and complete the key questions before you can write another culminating activity. So you do have more than one opportunity to write the culminating activity and get your credits. As I said before, if you have been out of school for a long time, or if you didn't do grade 9 and 10 math, it might be a good idea to do the lessons before the culminating activity. But if you are strong in math, you might want to try the culminating activity first. So it's up to you to decide how you want to do that. Okay, so let's get into lesson 1. So lesson 1 is, like I said earlier, is the basics of math. So we are going to be in lesson 1 talking about integers and fractions. And again, there's my contact information on the front cover. So lesson 1, integers. The first 4 key questions are on integers, and we will be spending 2 weeks probably working with integers, a week and a half, and then the second part of the lesson is on fractions. So again, that'll be another week and a half, 2 weeks. So the first 3 to 4 weeks we will be focusing in lesson 1, because again, that's the basics of math, and it's in order for you to be successful with the other lessons, you need to understand integers and fractions. So we're going to be spending a lot of time with that. So your learning goals are listed there, and at the bottom of the page are also some useful videos. These are not the class videos, these are other videos that are have been uploaded by a different organization to help with some of the basics of math. And these are really good videos to watch. I have watched several of them, and they are very informative. Okay, so lesson 1, we're going to have a look first at some terms, some terminology that you will hear me use throughout the classes, and you will see them written in the lessons as well. So first of all, a negative number. So what is a negative number? A negative number is, a number is negative if it is less than 0. So if you think about our temperatures in the winter, when they go below 0, they are negative. We usually, instead of saying the temperature is -20, we will say -20. Means the same thing. The temperature is below 0. Okay? Positive numbers are the numbers that are greater than 0. Okay, so above 0. So these are the positive numbers. So like today the temperature is supposed to be 5. So we know that's going to be fairly warm because it's above 0. You will notice that the negative number, neither the negative numbers nor the positive numbers include 0. 0 is not negative and it is not positive. It's just 0. Okay, so don't put down -0 or +0. It's not. It's just 0. Integers. The whole numbers plus their counterparts less than 0 and 0. So that's what an integer is. It's a whole number and their counterparts that are less than 0, and it also includes 0. The negative integers, as we mentioned already, just like negative numbers, are less than 0. So -1, -2, -3, etc. Positive integers are greater than 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So the integers are all the negative numbers, all the positive numbers, and 0. But integers do not include fractions or decimals. Okay, operation. It's not a medical procedure. An operation is a mathematical process. The most common operations are add, subtract, multiply, and divide, which you're probably all familiar with. But there are many more, such as squaring a number, finding the square root, logarithms, etc. If it isn't a number, it is probably an operation. Okay, then we have the sum. The sum is the answer to an addition question. So if you're adding two numbers together, the answer is called the sum. The difference is the answer to a subtraction question. So if you're asked to find the difference between 7 and 3, you're going to subtract those numbers. The product is the answer to a multiplication question. So if you're asked to find the product of 7 and 3, you're going to multiply the numbers. And the quotient is the answer to a division question. So if you are asked to find the quotient of 4 and 2, you're going to divide those numbers. Okay? So sum, difference, product, and quotient are all answers to different operations with numbers. Okay, then we have a fraction. So a fraction represents equal parts of a whole or a collection. So taking one whole circle or whatever, or a collection of objects, and separating them into pieces. So a fraction is a piece. A numerator is the top number of a fraction. So when you have a fraction, so for example 2/3, the numerator is the number on the top. The denominator is the bottom number of a fraction. So the 3 is the denominator. So if you're trying to, you get confused which one the numerator is, which one is the denominator. The denominator starts with a D, the same as the word down. So down on the bottom. That might help you remember it. Okay, invert means to put upside down or in the opposite position, order, or arrangement. So when we work on dividing fractions, you will be asked to invert one of the fractions. And that basically means put it upside down, flip it. But we'll talk about that more later on. The divisor is the number that is being divided by. So 4 divided by 2, 2 is the divisor. So just read it as 4 divided by. The number that is being divided by is the divisor. The dividend is the number that is being divided. Okay, so the 4 is the number that is being divided. So that's the dividend. And the reciprocal of a fraction is when the numerator and the denominator are switched. So if you have 2/3 and you're asked to invert 2/3, it becomes 3/2. So 3/2 is the reciprocal of 2/3. Okay, so now if you're not familiar with those terms, it's going to take you a while to remember all of them, but take your time, and we will be meeting them, as I said, as we go through the lesson, so they will become more familiar to you. Okay, so beginning on page 4 of your lesson, so page 4, 5, 6, and 7 talks about negative numbers and adding integers. On page 8 is your support question number 1. So as I said when we're going through the study guide, do the support questions. So calculate each sum, add those integers, and then flip to the end, near the end of the lesson, for the answers to support questions, and right here, answers to support questions. There are the answers to support question number 1. So make sure you do those questions before you look at the answers. Okay, so let's begin by talking about negative numbers are, because as I mentioned, it's very important that you understand what a negative number is in order to understand what negative integers are and to work with them. So a negative number is a number that has a value less than 0. We already talked about that. Negative numbers are symbolized by a minus or a dash sign in front of a number. For example, this is -5 or -5. They are represented on the number line to the left of 0. 0 is what we call the origin. So here we have a number line. Here is 0, which is the origin. So your negative numbers are these numbers that are to the left of 0. As I mentioned, they do not include 0. They're to the left of 0. Negative numbers can be whole numbers, so like -2 and -3. Negative numbers can also be fractions or decimals. So -2/3, -5/7, -0.5, -0.7, etc. They are all negative numbers. So the positive numbers then are to the right of 0. Okay, negative numbers have several different interpretations, so people think of them differently. So when you're doing your math, think of them whichever way helps you better. So you can think of them as a number that is less than 0. Okay, so negative numbers less than 0. So here's 0. These numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, are less than 0. You can also think of them as numbers that are to the left of 0 on the number line. So picturing a number line or even using a number line might help you identify more with negative numbers. They're also a number that is the opposite of a positive number. So every positive number has a number that is, an opposite negative. Okay, so for example, the opposite of +4 is -4. The opposite of +1 is -1. So for every positive number, there is an opposite negative number. If you were to add your positive and your negative opposites, your answer is always 0. Okay, so if you have -3 plus positive 3, your answer is 0. If you have 5 plus negative 5, your answer is 0. Okay, and I'm using brackets around that negative 5 here just so that it's not as confusing, because if I write it that way, it gets confusing, and somebody might look at it and go, what's 5 plus minus? What does that mean? Do I add or do I subtract? So when we have negative numbers, we usually put brackets around them just to make it less confusing. Okay, negative numbers also represent loss or absence of something. So for example, in football, a loss of 5 yards is negative 5. Spending $25, so basically the same as losing it, is negative 25. And 12 degrees below freezing, freezing is 0, so 12 degrees below that is negative 12. Okay, so those are different ways to represent negative numbers. And like I said, you can use whichever system works better for you. Okay, negative numbers make more sense if we look at a number line. So it's often helpful to look at a number line or even a thermometer. On a number line, all the numbers to the right of 0 are positive. So here's 0. These are the numbers to the right. They are our positive numbers, symbolized by a plus sign. If we move to the left of 0, so here are the numbers to the left of 0, these are our negative numbers, symbolized by a minus sign. The negative numbers are smaller than 0, and they're obviously smaller than all of the positive numbers. We end up with a negative number by subtracting a larger number from a smaller one. So for example, if we subtract 9 from 8, it looks like this. So if we have the smaller number 8 and we're subtracting 9, which is bigger, we're going to end up with a negative number, negative 1. So if you think about it as with money, if you have $8 and you owe someone $9, so 9 you owe them is a negative number. So if you pay them the $8, you still owe them $1. So that will be a negative 1 or a minus 1. Negative numbers are sometimes confusing when we first learn about them. The rules can be hard to remember, but like everything else, understanding negative numbers gets easier with practice. So as we work through the lesson, hopefully, negative numbers will make more sense to you. Okay, so that's all negative numbers. Now we need to understand negative integers. Negative integers are slightly different from negative numbers. A negative integer is a whole number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, those are whole numbers, that has a value less than 0. So that means negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, etc. Okay? Negative integers do not include fractions or decimals. Oops, decimals. Okay, so if somebody says negative a half is an integer, it isn't. It's a negative number, but it's not a negative integer. So just going back to our number line, so 0 is the center or the origin. The number line, we have to remember, goes on to infinity in both directions. And that's why we put arrows on both ends of the number line, because they just keep going on. And the opposites of counting numbers create the negative integers. So 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2. 3, negative 3, 4, negative 4, etc. Those are the opposites. The set of integers is composed of the counting or the natural numbers, their opposites, and 0. So negative numbers, the positive numbers, and 0 only. Beginning with 0, numbers increase in value as you go to the right. So we start at 0, we go to the right, the numbers get bigger. Okay, so for example, if you have one chocolate bar, you have 2 chocolate bars, you have more. You have 3 chocolate bars, you have more than 2. 4 chocolate bars, more than 3. 5 chocolate bars, more than 5, etc. So that keeps getting bigger or more. When you go to the left of 0, the numbers decrease in value. They get smaller. So -4 is smaller than -3. -3 is smaller than -2. -2 is smaller than -1. -1 is smaller than 0 or less than 0. If a number is to the left of a number line, on the number line it is less than the other numbers. So the further to the left we go, so over here -10 would be less than -9, -8, -7, -6, -5, etc. So even though, if we look at these two digits here, we've got -14 and 5, -14 is smaller than 5, even though if you just look at the numbers themselves, we've got 14 and 5, 14 is bigger, but because it's negative, that decreases its value. It's smaller. Okay, so that's negative numbers and negative integers. We're going to be focusing on integers. Okay, we're not going to be doing much with fractions until later on in the next few weeks. Right now we're going to focus on integers. So that's just the whole numbers, negative and positive and 0. So adding integers is the process of finding the sum. So that means the sum is the answer when you're adding numbers of 2 or more integers. It may result in an increase or a decrease in value. So if you're adding 2 positive numbers, then your answer is going to end up being bigger. If you're adding 2 negative numbers, your answer is going to end up smaller. So adding integer rules. So you will notice that in math, there are rules for just about everything. And we have to remember the rules, we have to use the rules, and then we should be okay. So the rules that have to be followed when you're adding 2 or more integers. So the rules for adding integers are the sum of an integer and its opposite is 0. So I mentioned this already. So if we have -4 plus 4, +4, these are opposite integers, then our answer is going to be 0. If we have a 100 plus -100, our answer is 0. So the numbers themselves have to be the same, but one has to be negative and one has to be positive. Then they're opposites and the answer is always 0. Doesn't matter how big the number is or how small, the answer is going to be 0. Okay? When adding 2 positive integers, it always results in a positive value that is greater than both of the integers. So 2 positive integers, 2 plus 2 equals 4. 4 is bigger than 2. 3 plus 9 equals 12. 12 is bigger than 3, and 12 is also bigger than 9. Okay, because you're getting more. So your answer will always be bigger when you're adding 2 positive integers. When you're adding 2 negative integers, you always result in a negative number that is smaller than the given numbers. So if we're adding -2 plus -2, our answer is going to be -4. -4, remember, it's a bigger number, but its negative is smaller than -2 because you're getting further away from 0. So just think about your number line. So -0, -1, -2, not -0, sorry, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. Here's -1, it's closer to 0. -4 is further away, so that means it's smaller. So when you're adding any integers that are both negative, your answer is going to be smaller negative. Adding a positive number with a negative number is done by finding the difference between the absolute value of both numbers. Then the sign with the greater number will attach to the sum. So first of all, the absolute value of a number means the number without the sign. So for example, the absolute value of +2 is 2. The absolute value of -4 is 4. So it's the number without the sign. That's what we mean by absolute value. So if you're adding a positive number, so plus 2, positive 2, and you're adding that to negative 4, what you have to do is look at the value, the absolute value of both numbers. We said the absolute value of positive 2 is 2. The absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So what you're going to do is subtract the absolute values. 4 take away 2 is 2. And you have to use the sign with the greater number, the number with the greater absolute value. 4 has the greater absolute value. It's negative, so that means positive 2 plus negative 4 equals negative 2, because that 4 is bigger. And then adding integers with 0 will result in the same number. So anything that you add to 0, your answer is going to be the number that you added to 0. So 3 plus 0 is 3. Negative 5 plus 0 is negative 5. So those are the rules. All right. So to add two positive integers, like I said, you add two positive integers together, you get a bigger positive number. So if you're using a number line, you start at 4, because we're adding 4 plus 7, and then you're going to add 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where you end up, that's your answer. 4 plus 7 is 11. Most of these you know already, but I'm just putting the number line in there to show you how it works. Add two negative numbers. Negative 4 plus negative 8. So we're going to start at negative 4, and then we're going to move to the left 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We end up with negative 12. So negative 4 plus negative 8 is negative 12. Okay, if you don't have a number line, then you use basically a shortcut. You add the two numbers. 4 plus 8 is 12. Both are negative, so your answer is negative. Okay, so if both of your numbers that you're adding are negative, then your answer always has to be negative as well. Okay, now what about if you're adding a positive integer to a negative integer? So let's look at our number line. Go back up here. So we're adding negative 3 plus 6. So we're starting at negative 3. What we're adding is positive, so we have to go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We end up at positive 3. So negative 3 plus 6 equals positive 3. You don't have to put the plus sign in there. I'm just putting it in there to illustrate that it is positive. Okay, so when you're adding a negative and a positive, your answer might be negative, it might be positive, depending on if your number is, which number is bigger, the negative or the positive, the absolute value. So subtract. The other way to do it is to use your absolute values. So if we have negative 3, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. The absolute value of positive 6 is 6. So then we would subtract our absolute values. So 6 take away 3 is 3. And then we have to look at our numbers. 6 is positive and is bigger, so that means our answer is going to be positive 3. Okay, so some of the problems that you might look at will be pretty straightforward, but some of them you will have to think about. So here we've got 5 plus negative 8. You can use the number line. Oops, go back up. Can't move it. Go back up here. Let's get rid of this again. So 5 plus negative 8. So we're going to start at the positive 5. And then because it's negative 8, we have to go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We end up at negative 3. So 5 plus negative 8 equals negative 3. If we do it the other way, where we find the absolute values, the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of negative 8 is 8. We subtract our numbers. 8 take away 5 equals 3. Now we have to decide positive or negative. 8 is bigger than 5. It's negative. So our answer is going to be negative 3. So 5 plus negative 8 equals negative 3. Okay. Now, add negative 7 plus 4 plus negative 5. So now we've got 3 numbers. 2 of them are negative numbers. One is a positive number. So in this case, when you have more than 2 integers that you're adding, you're going to group all your positive numbers together, and you're going to group all your negative numbers together. So negative 7 plus 4 plus negative 5, we're going to rearrange so that our negative 7 and our negative 5 are together, and then our negative 5 is by itself. So now we've got 2 negative integers. We're going to add those. They're both negative, so our answer is going to be negative. 7 plus 5 is 12. So now we have negative 12 plus 4. So now we have one negative number and one positive number. So now we use the absolute value rule or system. Okay, so the absolute value of negative 12 is 12. The absolute value of positive 4 is 4. 12 is bigger. Let's do our subtraction first. Sorry, 12 take away 4 equals 8. Now we have to figure out our sign. Is it negative or positive? 12 is bigger than 4. 12 is negative, so our answer is negative 8. Okay, so again, here we go, just what I just did. You can use a calculator to add integers. You will have to use the plus minus key or the integer key on your calculator. So do negative 7 plus 4 plus negative 5 using a calculator. Let's see if I can get this to work. All right, so there we go. There we go. So to get negative 7 on my calculator, I press the 7, and here my 7 appears. Then I hit the plus minus key, which is down here at the bottom, and that will give me the negative 7. So then I'm going to add, just using the plus key, 5, and then I'm adding negative 7. So again I put in, or sorry, was it negative 8? I think it was 8. And then I hit the plus minus key, and then I hit equals, and my answer is negative 10. I can't remember if that was the correct one. Let me go back there. Negative 7 plus 4 plus negative 5. Okay. Negative 7 plus 4. Where is it? Oh. That's not what I want. Here we go. Nope. So 7, negative 7 plus 4 plus, and it was negative 5. And then equals, and my answer is negative 8. So just remember, if you are using a calculator, that you need to use that plus minus key. Put in the number first, so put in 7 first, then hit the key to make it negative 7. So you can use a calculator. Okay, and you can add more than one number. So that brings us to key question 1 in lesson 1. Find the sum. So right up until you get down to the last one, they're all just 2 integers that you're adding. So the first one, very basic, it's a positive 2 plus a positive 3. You've got 2 positive numbers, so your answer is going to be positive. 2 plus 3 is 5. The next one, you've got a negative and a positive. So here you need to use the absolute values. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. The absolute value of positive 10 is 10. Then you subtract. 10 take away 3 equals 7. 10 is bigger than 3. It's positive, so your answer is positive 7. Okay. After a little while, you might be able to look at them and do all that in your head, and then just do negative 3 plus 10 is positive 7 because you know the 10 is bigger. Okay? If you're adding two negative, integers, then your answer is going to be negative. You don't even have to worry about which one is it going to be. 7 plus 4 is 11. Your answer is negative 11. Okay, so look first to see if you have the same sign or if you have different signs, because the technique that you're going to use is going to be different if you're adding numbers that have integers that have different signs. Okay, so finish key question 1 before our next class, which will be next week on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday, we will continue on with working with operations with integers. Okay, so good luck with that key question. Please contact me if you need help with it. And remember, you can always watch the classes on YouTube as well. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend. Miigwech.